Hello, everyone. My name is Padmini Nidumolu, and I'm the co-founder of Lean and Agile for Women. This video is part of Lean and Agile 100, also known as LIA100. It's an initiative to celebrate the journeys of inspiring, outstanding women, thought leaders in Lean and Agile spaces. Introducing today is a very special guest who is a founding member of Women in Agile, which is a collective effort to recruit, network, promote, and support the work of outstanding women in Agile community. She also supports the local Chicago community by serving as advisory board member for ITA's Women Influence Chicago. She gives back to the community quite a bit by being a mentor. She's a speaker, she's a contributor to industry publications and several university curriculums. She's currently serving as a senior vice president of program management and operations at Centro. Prior to this, she was a director of digital portfolio management at Weight Watchers International for over 7 years. Please join me in welcoming Joanna Vahlsing. Hi, Joanna. How are you?
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you today. I'm doing just great. Looking forward to our conversation.
That's great. And it's an honor on Lean and Agile's behalf. We are really honored and thrilled to bring you on board to Lean and Agile 100, Women Thought Leaders. So thank you so much for your time today and your willingness to share and contribute to this program. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. My first question to you, Joanna, is you have a very strong program and project management background, right? Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about what led you to the Agile world, and most importantly, the incorrect perception that project managers cannot be natural Agilists.
Wonderful. I love that question. Thank you so much. So probably need to start a little bit into my project management career just to talk a little bit about the journey. Mm-hmm. So I've been in some form of project, program, or portfolio management for roughly the last 20 years. And when I first started out, it was very much in a traditional environment, following waterfall approaches, long requirement cycles up front, followed by design, followed by development. And then usually what would happen is really heavy change management processes that would happen in those development cycles, or usually when we get into testing, specifically user testing, because that's usually when things would come up of, wait, no, this wasn't what I was expecting. Hold on, what? And that's when the battles also started of, you missed a requirement. Well, yes. All of that. And so it was very process oriented. And as a project manager, it made my job pretty easy, right? Just follow the processes, have a project schedule, just, following the process was my biggest way to get my bonus, to get accolades, was I following the process.
Yeah.
So at Weight Watchers, in the first couple of years, we did follow a pretty traditional waterfall process where we were releasing 2 or 3 times a year. And, at the early stages, that was fine. We had a new chief product officer come in right around 2010, 2011. And what we were finding was a lot of the mobile apps, the startups around the world, were really starting to prove a huge competitor for us. And they were able to react very quickly to change, to address customer needs. And the new chief product officer basically said, look, we can't only release value to our customers 2 or 3 times a year. We need to be able to move faster, quicker, and also really validate a lot of our assumptions that we were making early on. So I took on a pretty significant project. It was one of the largest transformations that happened within Weight Watchers. And what I realized was the criticality of this particular project for the future of the company, we needed to basically just do whatever was needed. We kind of threw the process out the window, and we were very accommodating to change. We were very accommodating to, oh, we're getting feedback from our user community. Let's go ahead and start to incorporate that. So I started to break free of that, oh, we must always follow the process. I started to see the value of adapting to what was going to give the customer the most amount of value, as opposed to just following that plan. The chief product officer also was able to bring in some of the most renowned thought leaders across the Agile ecosystem, of like Marty Kagan and Jeff Patton.
Right.
So I was able to learn from some of the just key folks of how to stand up product teams that are cross-functional, that are charged with a particular outcome as opposed to charged with a feature list from the quote-unquote business,
Right.
to be able to focus on a particular objective. So all of this started to help me see that when it comes to project management, there wasn't just one way to do it, that if it's all aligned to what is it you're looking to achieve. And in the Agile space, working with some of those thought leaders, I was able to understand, oh, it's not so much that it's a free-for-all. It's not so much, because again, if someone's coming from an unknown place, it sounds very loose. It feels very open. There is some structure there. There is some way of managing the work within a particular team. So I was able to break free from a lot of those more traditional thought processes, and really see the value that Agile could provide.
That's awesome. And I love what you said. There is not just one way to do things. And, just getting all the perspectives and viewpoints is very valuable. So thanks for sharing that. And I was also looking at, your journey as a founding board members of Women in Agile, which is also an effort to kind of launch new voices, new women voices, and seeding local communities, among other initiatives that you have. And in your experience with Women in Agile, you must have interacted with several women. You've spoken in those, events, etc. What are some of the observations and learnings, if you will, that stood out, if you can share them with us?
Sure. So with Women in Agile, as you mentioned, the three pillars are seeding local communities, conference allyship, and launching new voices. And I'm the closest to launching new voices because I also lead that particular program for Women in Agile. So a lot of my stories will be within that ilk. And it's actually how I got started with Women in Agile. I was one of the new voices that was launched in 2017. So what I was able to, and I can share this from my experience, but I have seen it in the community as well, was I was very intimidated to submit for a conference talk, to like, is there value in the message that I'm about to share with the community? Am I equipped? I'm not used to speaking in front of large groups of people. I didn't have the confidence to be able to do that, as well as the skills, because it's not something that we're necessarily trained. We get a lot of training in other aspects, but to be able to articulate just the information you're trying to convey and have that information be valuable, it's a really tough skill to master. So
it is, yeah.
So with Women in Agile, I was able to submit to be a new voice, get paired with a mentor who was able to not only give me feedback on the content of what message I was looking to provide, but also give me feedback on my presentation style, what I needed to work on, what would be more impactful to the group. And so having that experience, I was able to see myself and others in the community and help inspire them to also submit to be a launching new voice, because it is such a safe environment to be able to take that step. So to answer your question of like, what is it that I am seeing as I interact with folks, it is, I don't want to just say it's a confidence building need. Because it's not that, because the women do have the confidence to do it. It's basically it's the invitation, I would say, of like, yeah, why don't, like, yes, I invite you to come. I want to hear more from you. That trigger usually will cause someone to be a lot more active and take that next step.
Okay, thank you so much, because everything that you just said, I believe, resonates with several women, right? As you said, I think we have the confidence. It's probably an internal barrier that, we all might need to break. So thanks for sharing those observations. And since you were the director of portfolio management of Weight Watchers International, I'll take the liberty of broaching the topic of self-perception, right, of our own image, just like you just mentioned, not just externally but internally, right? And I'm talking about I'm not enough mindset, which is an alignment with what you just spoke about. And since you've kind of gone through the journey of launching New Voices, and you've kind of apparently broke loose of that, that internal barrier. If you have to kind of advise or share your thoughts around the internal barriers like confidence gap, which you mentioned, and self-loathing, or the internal conflicts of, am I enough? Am I, good? Or am I good enough? That can really sabotage our efforts to move forward in our journey, whether or not there are external obstacles. What are your thoughts around taking that first step?
Sure. It could be a very small step. So, I'm just unpacking your question a little bit.
Right.
As it relates to, am I enough? That concept. We've all heard about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset.
Yes.
And in passing, it's pretty easy just to almost say, okay, cool, that's a theory, I got it. I would say really starting to internalize that, because it's what it does is it's like, it starts to put some temporal thoughts on it. We're not fixed, we're always changing. And also the environment that we work in, whether it's technology or new ideas for how to manage work and get stuff done, that's also always changing. So our ability to continuously learn, to grow, there's really no way to know if there's adequacy or not, because it's always a moving target. So just kind of accepting that and knowing I've got the capabilities to be dropped into a new situation, learn quickly what's going on, and I know I'm always growing, as opposed to, oh crap, I need to have all the information on the, like, right now, and if I'm not smart enough, well, it's just, these are very polarizing thoughts. So having that growth mindset. And then as far as what someone can do, so I'll speak from personal experience. Again, I mentioned I've got almost 20 years of managing projects. But up until 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, but yeah, everybody does, right? Everybody knows what I know. Like, of course they've like, what would I have to contribute? So I signed up for a mentoring program. And that actually, I got more out of the mentorship than I think my mentee did. Although she continues to thank me. But I started having coffee with someone who was very early in their career. And I would share my stories and share my experiences and share tactics that have worked for me. And she's just writing this stuff down. Like, this is fantastic. It's so helpful. And I'm like, it is? So
I bet it was.
Thank you. And so that kind of helped me start to validate those feelings within inside myself of like, oh, maybe I do have something I need to be able to give back. So when you ask about like what steps, just that small thing, talk to someone who's starting out in their career. Because I remember when I was in my career, I wanted to learn from folks that were, So yeah, that would be the recommendation I would give.
That's fantastic. And you've done a variety of things, Joanna, right? Right from project management and mentorship, speaking, and everything that you just mentioned is just so varied in nature. What are the superpowers that you apply, which enables you to do all this?
Let's see, as far as I'm always open for new things. I get bored very quickly. So I'm always looking for something that's novel. And if I can get a fulfilling, just some inner fulfillment from giving back to the community. So that is something that drives me. As far as my superpowers, why I think folks are like, oh, great, Joanna's interested in this. That's fantastic. Is I have a really great way of figuring out the order within the chaos. So usually what will happen is folks will reach out to me because they're stuck on a particular thing or don't know what that next step is, whether it's within work, whether it's within one of the other things I'm engaged with.
Yeah.
And the feedback I get from folks is like, oh, Joanna, thank goodness. Yes, put your brain on this because we figure out what's that next step. How do we keep moving forward to accomplish the goal? So based on feedback, I would say that is my superpower.
That's a great superpower because not everybody can see order in chaos or bring order to chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, every organization will need that superpower. And I was just, very fascinated by, you being an advisory board member of, Illinois Technology Association's Women Influence Chicago. And this is about, I believe, creating thriving work environment for women. Tell us a little bit about how it is to connect with this community and increase female leadership in organizations, which is the need of the hour.
Yeah, so it's something, this is one I like because it's close to home. And just being able, so I love all the work that's happening on the national level, international level, being able to have it focused here in Chicago because and there's just some of the best tech companies that are here, some of the strongest talent that is here. Like it does rival sometimes the coast. And
Right.
coming from New York and working with folks in San Fran, I can certainly say that Chicago is fantastic.
Yeah.
So other advice back to the community: consider Chicago. It is great.
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
So as far as the Women Influence Chicago, that initiative that is powered by the Illinois Technology Association. What I love about that is the Illinois Technology Association really has strong connections into the various companies, tech companies across Illinois, not just Chicago. So we are able to give back to some of the areas that aren't just in the Chicago metropolitan area. And then here in Chicago, some of the things that we're doing is we just released earlier this year a benchmark report of the number of female leaders that are in VP positions or above. So it gave us a really nice baseline of where we are and then what are some of the initiatives that we can do to continue to increase that diversity. So there's lots of stuff coming down the pike of what we've got to help increase those numbers to ensure additional, more representation.
That is awesome. Because this is a true give back to the community, right? To kind of bring the diversity in the top leadership and management across the organizations. That's really neat. And as part of your journey, and you talked about growth mindset, and I've always made notes of great authors, books, videos, podcasts, or anything that comes my way. Because that's a great backlog of learning materials for me. You must have taken notice of several great books and outstanding authors in your journey. Any book or video or podcast recommendations for our audience here?
Sure. So depending on where folks are in their journey, for someone who's maybe just starting out and really wants a very broad sweep of what is Kanban versus Scrum versus TDD, like just a very nice overview of all of those things, I would highly recommend reading the Agile Practice Guide. It's a joint publication of the Agile Alliance as well as Project Management Institute. So it's the two bodies coming together to create this really holistic view into the ways work can be managed. And it, back to what we were talking about earlier about how there is not a one size fits all.
Right.
It provides a very nice purview into all of them. And then the second one I would really suggest reading, and this is for folks probably a little bit further in their learning journey, because it is like, if it was like a 101, 201, 301 talk, it's probably a 301. But it's of the same ilk of Woody Zull's No Estimates movement. This is Evan Laburn and Shane's book, No Projects.
Right.
Because that also, to your question earlier about how can project managers, project management offices be able to shift the thinking into more of an agile mindset to be able to adapt to change. This is one of those books that'll help reinforce the concepts of how to bridge those two items. And then, of course, one more thing, anything that Johanna Rothman writes.
Yes. I mean, I've been kind of following that as well. Thank you. And if you had to relay a message to the vibrant Agile community, Agile and Lean community today is really vibrant very well connected and very willing to give. What would your message to this community be? And it could be a message, a quote, or anything that you have seen in the recent past.
Let's see. Wow, this is a powerful forum.
Yeah.
So in that message, I would say invite others to it. What we were saying earlier about just extend that invitation. Sometimes that's that nudge that people need to be able to share their voice, because the more diverse voices that we have in the community, the stronger that will be.
That's a fantastic message.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for your time and willingness to come here, to Lean and Agile 100. And as part of Lean and Agile, organization itself, we are trying to, build this repository of great messages and leaders like yourself, and also do a community of women in individual local communities called Spirals, for women to come together and offer to the community and seek from the community. And we also have something called Next Gen, to pull in the next generation and provide them with tools, for growth mindset, as you mentioned, as well as self-organizing, tools, and also just bring them into, the space of, agile and lean mindsets. So it's an honor to bring you into Lean and Agile 100. Thank you so much for your time and your
Thank
willingness
you.
to participate. Thank you.